You're listening to Crystal and Emily on Love Your Shelf, the best librarian podcast in the extensive and highly competitive field of librarian podcasts. Well, we are back with Love Your Shelf, even though we took sort of an unscheduled hiatus
Whoopsie
over the summer. But we're getting back in. We'll be back to our weekly episodes. And today we have a podcast favorite joining me and Emily, and that's Amy Goodwin.
Hi.
Welcome, Amy.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes. So, our loyal listeners will know that Amy's podcast about romance novels is the most listened to episode that we've ever had.
I don't know if I knew that.
Yes.
I love it.
I take all the credit. Yeah.
Wow.
You should. The credit is yours.
Oh, love it.
Well, thank you for asking me back. That makes me so happy.
Oh, yeah. No, we're glad to have you. And since we have been kind of on hiatus, we have lots of stuff that we can talk about. But first, I want to let you start and talk about the stuff that you have been reading or consuming, whatever you're doing.
In whatever form.
In whatever form it is. And we'll take it from there.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I am currently addicted to a couple of different series of books. I'm reading a series that's written by C.S. Harris. They're mysteries, and Harris has a PhD in 19th century Europe. So they're like these sort of romance novels / mystery / historical accuracy that is so interesting and amazing. Every time I read one of these books in the series, I have to add a book to my to be read file about that historical significant thing that happened in the book. And right now I'm like 11 books in. I think there's 20 books in the series. I checked, and I just love them so much. It's the Sebastian St. Cyr is the main character, the guy solving all the mysteries. And it's just the writing is really well done. Every book is like 350 pages, so you can get through it in a couple of days, and you just enjoy every second of it. And every time I read one, I'm like, that was so clever and that was so interesting. How will they ever top it? And then the next book, Jane Austen shows up, and you're like, oh my God. Yeah. It's just like, how can they get better than this? And then in the next book, like Napoleon's brother shows up, and I didn't know anything about him or like historical significance in European history, but it just really blows your mind how clever the books are. So I love those so much. I can't stress enough how much I like them. She also writes historical romance, which you can tell the way she writes is beautifully romance novel kind of writing, but she writes under the name Candace Proctor for the historical romance. So that's next on my list to investigate. Yes.
Well, until you said that they were 350 pages, it sounded like a lot like Outlander.
That's what I was kind of imagining. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not as intense as Outlander, although it can go to some dark places. It's almost like they're not going to go that far. They're just giving you like the sort of seediness of London, England in the early 1800s. They talk all the time about the poverty and the difference between the classes and how people are. It really shines a spotlight on that. So if you are ever thinking, oh, I wish I could be an Outlander and go back in time, it reminds you like, oh, well, it wasn't so great to be poor in these times. Like, a lot of the things he investigates, it's like, people who died that no one cares about, and they were poor, so no one even investigates it. So it's really good how he kind of gets into all of it, the underbelly of London and all that in the early 1800s. Anyway, I love those books. I they have them at the library. That's where I got the first one. I just casually picked it up and then was hooked. So you should read them.
Love when
Definitely.
that happens.
And I also want to clarify that C.S. Harris is not Charlene Harris, because
It
people
isn't.
say that.
Oh,
So
okay,
it's not the same person, not even remotely similar. But
Yes, that I asked you that too and had to go and investigate it. But yes,
Yeah.
they're different people. Another book that I actually listened to the library on the Libby app. I listened to it instead of read it, was The Lady in the Lake by Laura Lippman.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a mystery. It's like set in Baltimore in the 1960s. It's this like middle-aged housewife that hates her life and becomes a reporter and like starts to investigate this death of this woman. And it was so good. I actually would not go to sleep at night. I would lie there and listen to it wait, like, because I'm like, I have to finish this, I have to know. And it was a really good mystery. It was, I love like the character development of the people was great. The way that they wrote the book, it was really good.
That's one I pulled for somebody's encounter box within the last couple of months. And I was like, I think I would like this. So yeah, no, it's really good stuff.
Well, speaking of encounter box books, I have to say y'all are brilliant at picking books for people, because my next book is an encounter box book that was chosen for me by the brilliant Crystal Hicks.
Yep.
And it's called The Jane Affair, and it's by Jasper Fforde. And it's a series also, which now I'm addicted to another series. Thanks, Crystal. It was so wonderful. I can't even describe it. You'll just have to read it. But it's so wonderful. If you like Jane Eyre, the book Jane Eyre at all, you will be so enamored of what they do with this book in this book. So it's just wonderful. It makes me wish that I was in the book so that I could do some of the stuff. I loved it. And I will say that it is now probably in my top 5 books. The Eyre Affair. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Because
Yeah.
I was present for the choosing of this book, and she was like, we had a whole conversation about it. I was like, I physically pulled it. She picked it out, but I physically pulled it and was reading the back. And yeah, it's again something that is super something up my alley. So
it was
I've
wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, and something that I read years ago, and my sister was super into the series, and the author, Jasper Fforde, has other series and some standalone, and he writes like lots of different, like his most recent one I think is science fiction, and he has a series that's in the children's section too. He wrote children's fantasy, and it really is hard to describe the book, and it's because it's set in Great Britain in the 80s, but it's like an alternative future or time, alternative timeline, I guess. And people can time travel, and then they can also go into fiction
stories,
books,
right?
Stories and stuff. And so,
because even reading like the book jacket on that one and some of the others as well that he had written, I was like, I don't even know what the first impression would be. I mean, I thought it sounded cool, but I was kind of like, somebody might think this is totally insane just reading the summary.
It's very clever though.
And
yeah,
it's so clever.
Yeah. Kind of winking, kind of self-aware sort of thing.
But the interesting thing about the timeline, I think the alternative timeline, it's almost like a time that if people who love to read could direct time, that is where we would come to, because fiction especially is, I mean, that is just, everyone goes crazy about it. If you change one little thing in a book, people lose their minds, and then you're just like, yeah, that's how it should be. Like people should know like Shakespeare word for word,
right
across the board, like that's the world you would love to live in. But there are some crazy things happening, so you might not want to be in that world. But at the same time, there's going to be evil villains in any timeline. They might as well be well read. is all I'm saying.
Yes.
Well put.
exactly.
Yes.
And the main character, the detective character, is female. Her name is Thursday Next, which I think that gives you a glimpse
Great
right there.
name.
Yeah.
I love a great name.
So,
Anyway,
I'm just so glad that you like that.
I loved it.
Like-
You're on a roll now. I'm telling you, those encounter
roll of one.
boxes get more stressful for you every month.
I was
because
about to
I-
say,
how
she
you
was-
top this.
Yeah, giving enthusiastic thumbs up as you were talking about it.
And then I was at the front desk when somebody was picking up theirs, and she'd requested a YA book, and so I had picked something, and she pulled it out and she said, "Well, I've read this," and so I was like, "Well, do you want me to go pick something else out for you?" And I had to pull like 3 more things before she hadn't read it.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Yeah, so it's hard. It's hard, especially when you're picking. Obviously, the people that are going to be asking for us to make these selections for them are probably pretty well read,
Right.
And so,
well, and it is reassuring that you're like, well, at least I'm like
I'm
heading in the right direction. Yeah, I'm taking the right avenue here.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
I'd love to hear what you guys are reading.
I will talk about a couple of things. One is a really short little book called Every Heart a Doorway, or is a Doorway, by Shauna McGuire. And it's like science fiction or more fantasy, I guess. Not so much the science part, but it is definitely fantasy. And it's about these teenagers, mostly children, young people, who are somehow able to, whether they want to or not, travel to some other realm. And so some of them, they like find a doorway somewhere, and they like, you know, it's like the Secret Garden kind of thing. You know, they find a doorway, they go through it, and suddenly they're transported to some other place. But back in their reality, sometimes like the time doesn't match up with the amount of time that they're gone.
Oh,
They come back and it's been years and they're still young.
Ooh.
Or you know, it's only been a day, but they've lived 100 years in this other place.
Oh my gosh.
wow.
And so all of these, or not all of them, but many of them come back and they can't reacclimate to the real world.
Oh, I love it.
And so they become like orphans, and they all go to stay at this particular place with this woman who's created a place where, or like a refuge for them.
Cool.
And then the murders start. So
Ooh. Didn't
love
see
the
that
way
coming,
you
I'm gonna be honest.
and so somebody's killing the whatever orphans. You know? Anyway, and it's a super quick read. Like, read it in an afternoon, and usually those don't have really as much like world building and fleshed out characters and stuff. But really, she did a good job of doing that, even though it's a short novel.
Yeah.
So I really like that.
What was the title again?
Every Heart a Doorway.
Cool.
Yeah.
It sounds amazing.
It does.
Yeah, and it was one that I think something somewhere just you know, like recommended it to me, and I thought, okay, do that. And then I started watching a new series that then made me go back to read the book. And so it's on Showtime, and Ethan Hawke stars in it. It's called The Good Lord Bird. And it's it was nominated for lots of awards. I haven't really followed the awards this year, but it was nominated. It's been highly regarded. And it was based on a book from 2013 by James McBride of the same title. And it's about this a young slave in Kansas before the Civil War, and his family is attacked, and he escapes, with John Brown, the actual historical figure.
Oh, cool.
The abolitionist, who is played by Ethan Hawke, and apparently was a real wackadoodle, like real interesting character. And so I can't remember why, but for some reason at the beginning, the only clothes that the young boy has are a girl's clothes, or he puts them on to hide.
Uh-huh.
And so John Brown thinks he's a girl, so he has to pretend like he's a girl the whole time he's with
Oh
him.
no.
And John Brown calls him Little Onion, and
Sweet.
yeah,
How nice.
yeah, and so it is very big and bold, and the Ethan Hawke is just chewing up the scenery, like
Yep.
full on. um, and then eventually they're going to get to the raid on Harper's Ferry, and
Wow.
so yeah. So
where is this? Did you say this at the beginning? Where it's streaming or where you're watching?
it's on Showtime.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah, which I get through Hulu. So
Okay.
yeah. Anyway, so I haven't finished the book or the series,
Mhm.
but that's sort of my process was when I realized it was a book and I had already seen an episode. I decided to go
got
read
it.
that. and
Yes.
then-
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm reading the book now.
Yeah, because of those C.S. Harris books, I am even more interested in historical things like that. Because at the end of the book, she has like a few pages of author's notes where she talks about, this really did happen, and this led to this, and historical context and things like that. So I'm gonna watch that show just because I'm kind of into that right now.
Yeah.
I want fiction books that take me into historical coincidences and just different things that I had no clue happened, because I've never studied that aspect of history in detail or something, but it's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely, makes the history more vibrant, right? So you've got real people, but with this fictional characters who can kind of interpret things for you. It's a fun way to read.
Nice.
Yes. And then this is sort of it's not a book, but it's about an author. So there was Elizabeth Moss on Hulu stars as Shirley Jackson in Shirley. And Shirley Jackson, of course, wrote all of the
Why do I know?
Hill House.
Yes.
Hill House.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah, ghost, scary, crazy stories. And so she actually, so it's a biography about her, and she had a kind of rough life. And so at least according to this film, even though she was one of the most important writers of the 20th century and was popular in her own time, she was also a wife of an academic who kind of kept her hidden away in the house because she was agoraphobic and an addict and alcoholic, and
Goodness.
and so in the film, this young couple who the kind of mirrors the Shirley Jackson and her husband. The young man is going to be a professor, and the woman is kind of relegated to the home because it's in mid-century, whatever is how women were treated. And so they are briefly invited to live in the Jackson home while they're getting themselves settled. And so the young man begins teaching, and he's being mentored by the Shirley Jackson's husband, and the young woman is kind of staying home and learning from Shirley.
Cool.
And they kind of both held each other, and I don't know. I did end up reading some biographies afterwards after watching the show, and they may have taken some liberties, of course, with how she's portrayed, but it does. You don't think she's going to be a character that you're going to identify with at the beginning, and then as the young woman starts to see that she could rebel against this role that she's being forced into, that because she's a smart student in her own right, but she's just not given the opportunity to move forward with that. And she starts to see Shirley in a different light, and so does the viewer. So it's really good. Elizabeth Moss always is great.
Slays.
Yeah.
Yeah, when as you're describing it, I was like, I think I saw that.
Mm.
Because if Elizabeth Moss is in something, I will watch it no matter what. So I was like, yeah, I do kind of remember that. So it was good. I did enjoy it too.
Okay, good. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not like uplifting.
Oh.
There's not a happy
There's not a
twist
happy
at the
ending,
end.
No, but anyway, but it is definitely well done. And then I'll let Emily go next, and then I've got like some other shows that I want to
Yeah.
recommend and some
Well, and
podcasts.
said I had one thing I wanted to enthusiastically recommend, but I have another thing that I
Oh.
wanted to recommend as well.
Yeah.
Yay.
I've been trying to read as many juvenile novels as I can. I'm trying to kind of, I don't know, familiarize myself with my collection a little bit. And I don't think I'll ever totally get there, but I'm trying.
There's a lot of them.
There's so much. But there's a series, I believe it's a 3-book series. I just finished the first one. It's called The List by Patricia Fforde. And it's set in a, I don't know, dystopian America. And I don't know, it has some definite Bible parallels, but I haven't like unpacked sort of, I don't know, what the intention was or how I feel about it. Anyway, it's a man named John Noah. Here we go. Had I guess sort of saw that humans were destroying the earth, and he and some men close to him sort of decided to save as many people as they could, and the people that were left over formed this society that called Ark.
Uh-huh.
And so it's, I guess the world is largely underwater at this point, and John Noah has decided that words and language were ultimately the thing that led to our demise. And so he has, cut down, I think he cuts down to like 500 words that we're allowed to use in the human language. And so the language is called List. And the story is, or the main character is the word apprentices, or the wordsmith. Yes, sorry. The wordsmith. And so anyway, she's sort of at the beginning is super loyal to John Noah and all that he's done. And, he saved everyone. But as she digs deeper, not as, I guess his intentions were not as well-intentioned as she thought.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, yeah, it's the first, I just finished the first book. It's good. I think we have the second book. If not, I'll get on ordering it. But so far, so good. So I recommend that. And then pivoting quite a bit onto a series that I stumbled upon on Netflix. Mindy Kaling created it. It's called Never Have I Ever. It's about a first generation Indian American teenage girl in Los Angeles. And I don't know, it's a lot of like, there's a major love triangle, a lot of just sort of real teen issues that we like to touch on. But it's so clever, so well done. I don't know, it's such a great, I laughed more than I cried, but like the tears were real and like touching and heartfelt. And the lead actress is so good. She's just so like naturally funny. So I don't know. You're really like rooting for her journey, whether it be, she's dealing with her father's death. So whether it's, that journey or like, which guy is she going to choose at the end? You are super invested. And so yeah, there are 2 seasons of that out, and I flew through it, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I watched some episodes of that.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's good.
How far did you get into it?
Just part of the way through the first season.
Yeah, it's fun. I really enjoyed it. I was about to say pleasantly surprised. I should have expected that from Mindy Kaling, so not so. Yeah.
And obviously, also to be expected, it's very diverse cast.
Yes,
and,
yeah.
Which reflects the real world. So,
Yep.
So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, really recommend it.
Well, I
What else you
also
got?
there was a new, it just kind of popped up, or else I would not have been aware of it. A new special episode of I'll Be Gone in the Dark.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was a follow up to the sentencing
Cool.
of the
I
killer.
wondered about that. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
How did I miss that?
Yeah, the only reason it just like it came up as my For You whatever when I
Okay.
came across it, but which we've talked about I'll Be Gone in the Dark before. Michelle McNamara, who wrote that about the
Golden State Killer.
yeah, and who they ended up catching.
Yeah, and they've said that she was. I mean, they couldn't have caught him without her. They've said, and she tragically passed away, sort of in the middle of writing the book. But anyway, they had some people come on and finish the book. Then they made a docuseries out of that story.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
It's really fascinating.
It's fascinating and touching and
heartbreaking,
and wrenching and so in this episode, a lot of the victims are there during the sentencing trial and relating how their lives were affected by all the crimes that he committed. And he's sitting there, it was, and of course, he's like ancient.
Yeah.
And he's, like a death's door. So there's also the tragedy of him.
I feel like he's also probably putting it on a little bit.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He was, looking so frail and
whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
We're
no
not
sympathy.
For that.
No.
So, and the sentencing, the judge didn't either. So
love it.
Good.
And it sounds cathartic.
Yeah, exactly. And then there was a movie on Netflix based on Eliza Schlesinger, whatever. Yeah,
that's what. Yes,
her Eliza, the comedian. Her real experience that she had. And I had not heard of it, but when I saw the film, I was like, this looks a little, off the wall. But apparently she met and dated this guy and got very serious with this guy who turns out he lied about everything about himself.
I watched that.
Did you?
Oh my gosh. Name of it?
Good on Paper.
Good on Paper. I did.
Yeah.
I watched that. Yes.
What did you think of it?
It came up as a rom-com, and I was like, "Oh, look,
yeah,
a new rom-com. I'm going to watch this." And as I'm watching, I'm like, "This guy's awful. No, get away from him." And I was like, "This. I hope this isn't like a legit rom-com where she's going to fall in love with this guy and forgive him because no. So I was happy with
man.
Yeah.
No.
It was crazy. It's so funny that it actually is kind of based on a real story because I wondered about that. With her being a comedian, I was like, is this just something she made up to talk about in her skit, or is this like a legit thing that happened to her? It's crazy.
What?
And she's friends with Margaret Cho in real life, and so Margaret Cho was her friend. And
I need to know, like, is there an example you can give of like a thing he lied about?
He lies about what he does for a job, about
every word that
he went to,
just everything.
Yeah, he talks about that he's a golf pro, and then they try to go play, or that he's like played on the Yale golf team or something, and then they go play golf, and he doesn't know how to play. And
what?
Just from and
spoiler alert, he didn't go to Yale either.
You're like, well, that he did.
Nope.
So how long were they? I need to know like the real
months, right? That she was with this guy.
He totally had her fooled, and she didn't even really like him that way at the beginning. He just forced himself into her life on all these different levels.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if
lies and stuff, it was crazy.
If that's your MO, I mean, I guess you have to. I don't know. You have to have a tactic that's going to get you in,
right,
and keep him around.
Yeah. Yeah, but it has a crazy twist to it. I don't want to give it away because but it was hilarious to watch, but would have been terrible to go through is all.
Yeah, gosh, I can imagine.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Let's see. Oh, okay. I also watched a documentary by Questlove
Oh,
called
cool.
Yeah.
Summer of Soul, and it's
Mhm.
about the 1969 Harlem Cultural Festival,
Yes.
which I didn't know about it at all.
Well,
You know,
and my sister was saying, because I can't remember if she watched it or I don't know, was going to watch it, but did Questlove say that even he like didn't know very much about this before sort of
I think
researching all of
so.
this?
I think so. But essentially what it was is in, of course, 1969
Mhm.
in Harlem in the country,
Mhm.
it was, kind of a powder keg
Mhm.
culturally. And so um, the mayor of New York was really supportive of and like helped this thing happen. And it was over the course of the whole summer, there were like several series of
Mhm.
just the biggest names in soul, R&B, gospel, all of that stuff,
Yeah.
um, that put on these concerts for free in parks, in the city or in a park in the city.
Mhm.
And it was just the performances were fascinating, but then, and then he interviews those performers that are still around
Mhm.
about their experiences then. And
Mhm.
So cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
very, very cool.
Questlove is the coolest.
Yeah, his knowledge of music is
Mhm.
unreal. So it was definitely well worth the time to watch
Cool.
it. And then I'll take a moment to unrecommend something, or
Ooh,
Okay.
I want to I want nobody to watch this.
I'm just as
basically.
interested. Yes.
Me too.
It changed my whole perspective, or my whole opinion of Kristen Wiig, who I normally like very much in all the stuff that she does. But she put out this movie called, and the name should have given me enough advance warning that I would not have. Anyway, called Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar.
Crystal, I didn't even finish it.
I left it on while I was cooking because I didn't sit and watch the rest of it. And I just was kind of curious, like, where it was going to go. Reba McEntire plays a water sprite
Didn't
of
even
some sort.
didn't even get that far.
Yeah. Who
Glad I
gives them
didn't.
a ride in at the end on dolphins.
No,
It was so bad.
it was so bad. Like, okay, I low key love this movie that Andy Samberg did in like, I don't know, 2006, 7, 8 ish, called Hot Rod. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous, lowbrow comedy, but it is hilarious. I mean, it's if you are, yeah, down with that, it's hilarious. And so I was kind of hoping that this would be that for Kristen Wiig.
Mhm.
It was not. It was just bad. I mean,
Oh,
I
wow.
chuckled a few times. I laughed at there's a part where they both discover that their favorite name in the world is Trish. And then they spend an entire airplane ride talking about how this fictional Trish would be as a person. And I thought that concept was funny, but that was about it. I was so disappointed.
Yeah. Pan, no good. Just avoid it at all
Avoid
costs.
it at all costs.
But if somebody liked it, I do want to hear from
Same.
them. I want to know what was the redeeming, what made you like this film?
No.
Because I don't think we can be friends.
I mean, it was, I know. I mean, it was like they took some like crazy, quirky SNL character that Kristen Wiig did and decided to make an entire movie about her. Like, I could see, which one was she? Barbara Starr.
She's Star.
Okay, I could see Star and Barb even being like characters in a funny SNL sketch. It'd be
That's
something silly
3
and
minutes
ridiculous.
long.
It's 3 minutes long.
Yeah.
That's all I need.
Yeah, I was so disappointed.
I'm scared to watch it now.
You should be.
Don't do it.
I watched a really good series. It was on HBO. And if you love the Great British Bake Off, it's sort of like wonderful in that way.
Uh-huh.
And it's called The Great Pottery Throwdown.
I
And
saw that, but I've watched any of them.
yeah, it's exactly like the Great British Bake Off, except with pottery.
I
Yes.
love it.
It's so good. I loved it so much. There were only 3 seasons. And then the third season, they get a new host, and it's a woman from the Derby Girls, which is one of my favorite shows. It's so funny. The woman that plays the nun in the Derby Girls. So you can imagine how hilarious she is at the pottery barn thing. Anyway, they're both 2 of the seasons are obviously during COVID, just because of, they're quarantined or
Right.
stuff like that. So I really hope it's something they just keep making forever, like they do Great British Bake Off. But if they would just interchange those, like I could watch the Bake Off and then I could watch the pottery throwdown, my life would be complete. Like I
Just
could
that
have
all
that
the time.
year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I loved it. I loved
It sounds like a nice, quiet, soothing way to live. I like
it is.
it.
It is. And
Well,
it's
there-
really artistic. I didn't realize how many different ways you can make pottery and the
Yeah.
different kinds of materials they used, and just their ideas are beautiful. Just the same way decorating a cake beautifully, like building a pot from scratch, handmade, and all this. They just make some really amazing things, and they always make toilets. That's always one of the episodes. Is they make
Nice.
toilets, and that's so cool.
Oh my gosh, I do think that's awesome.
So I would imagine that all the potters that I know, they kind of live a life of danger because, or things explode in the kiln.
They
and
do.
Oh,
Yes.
So
yeah.
does that cause some drama there?
Yes, there's always like that moment before they open the kiln where you're just like, oh, please don't let it be Gary's. Anyone but Gary's. Yeah. Just like,
Okay, well,
So-
that's been, I caught my eye, but I, didn't know if it was good. So now I'm glad to know.
Yeah.
And I will
Yeah.
be watching that for sure.
Cool.
So I have just a couple more, and then we'll wrap up and go on about the rest of our Friday. But I started a series it's on Stars. It's called The Gloaming,
Mhm.
and there's just one season of it. It is very dark, and it kind of reminds me of that, or at the beginning, it reminded me of that recent Kate Winslet murder mystery drama that she was just doing.
The
Mayor of Easttown.
Yes.
Mayor. I was going to say mule, but it's mayor.
That's a very different.
Oh my
So this starts out, and I guess maybe I thought that because it's kind of like through a certain perspective. It's a female detective
Mhm.
who's kind of middle-aged-ish, or you're
Mhm.
getting to middle age, and
Mhm.
but then it diverges very quickly after that. And it's got this like supernatural stuff that's going on.
Cool.
Mhm.
And it's set in Tasmania,
Nice. Okay.
which how many
I was about
films
to
have you
say,
seen, or
I'm
series have you seen set in Tasmania?
ready for that.
And it's kind of got Wicker Man vibes, where there's like this, maybe undercurrent of people who are doing stuff for their own purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, you don't really get to see that. It slow plays it a lot. So
Mhm.
you don't know until, or even there's plausible deniability about there being anything
Got it.
supernatural or whatever, but I'll continue watching it, but there's
Okay,
just the one
cool.
season out right now, and
I'm
it's pretty
intrigued. I'll bite.
Sounds good.
good. Yeah. And then lastly, I recently rewatched a movie from 2006, and I think I recommended it to Emily. It's called Brick, and it's directed by Ryan Johnson. It was Ryan Johnson's first movie, and I loved it when I've seen it several times. Loved it when it came out, and Ryan Johnson is great. He also did Knives Out and The Brothers Bloom, and he did one of the Star Wars. He did The Last Jedi, and also Looper, which is kind of a underrated. It's
Nick loves Looper.
Really?
Like he and I both have lists of like our favorite movies just of all time. There's no limit. We just, if we think of a movie that we love, we'll add it to our list. And Looper is on his. And I was like, oh, I enjoyed Looper, but
Yeah.
he loved Looper.
Yeah. I wouldn't, it's not my favorite even of Ryan Johnson's movies. Brick
Yeah.
is definitely that. But Joseph Gordon-Levitt
Mhm.
plays the teenager main character who, it's basically, it's set in a high school or with high school students, but they are all like hard-boiled. He's like a hard-boiled detective noir
Type.
kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he talks like that. They all talk like 40s gangsters.
Oh, wow.
And it sounds ridiculous, but it is, but it's it's this kind of parody, but you can tell that everybody just loves it so much, and the director loves it so much
Yep.
that and none of them wink at all.
That's what I was
They
about to say.
are
Is it's
100%
very, yes.
invested in like presenting this as a dark
Yes.
underbelly. Like,
This is real.
visceral.
This is life. Yeah.
Yes, but it's hilarious.
It is. I mean, it's funny for us. Yeah. Yeah.
Like
I
for the
totally
viewer,
agree.
you're cracking up because it's just you know
Mhm.
he's like gets in trouble and goes to the principal's office, and it's like saying how he's gonna, you can't keep me in detention or whatever. It's just the best.
Does everything except flick a cigarette. Like,
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
Just awesome. And so so I rewatched that, and then I went to a movie I had never seen before, but I'd heard of,
Mhm.
and I didn't realize what it actually was. But because I think somebody in a review compared Brick to this other film, and so I looked it up, and there's this movie Bugsy Malone,
Mhm.
and from 1976 with Jodie Foster
Uh-huh.
and Scott Baio.
Uh-huh.
Oh, wow.
And
Right.
they're very small kids at this point. And it's directed by Alan Parker, who eventually went on and did Evita and Mississippi Burning,
Oh, cool.
Midnight Express, and all these other. Yeah, he's went on to do very great things.
Yeah.
This is not one of those great.
Oh, no.
That's terrible.
Oh my gosh. So this one it's like all these young kids who are dressed as Bugsy Malone and Flapper gangster people.
Oh, so they went there.
They went all the
Got
way
it.
there.
Okay.
So, and they're shooting each other
Oh, no.
with
no.
like cream pies and stuff.
Oh.
It is bonkers.
Wow.
I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched enough to
I
be
got
like,
the idea.
yeah, wow,
Yeah.
they really went
Yeah,
for it,
yeah.
and they missed it.
But
But they've got like dancing girls, but
Oh,
they're
no.
all 12.
oh,
Oh.
yeah, something about that.
And Scott Baio
Doesn't sit
plays
right,
Bugsy
yeah.
Malone, and
I mean, you lost me as Scott Baio. I'm sorry.
it's just so weird
Wow,
and
that's
fails so
funny.
catastrophically on
That's
every level.
hilarious.
Anyway, so it is. I can see why somebody would compare that to Brick. Worlds apart.
Yep.
Yeah. Different. Go see Brick.
Yeah.
Don't even turn on Bugsy Malone because.
Yeah. Lessons were learned in
Yes.
between.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
We're glad you sacrificed yourself so we don't have to do it.
Right.
That's what I do. I'm doing it
Thank
all
you.
for you guys.
Thank you.
Although I did turn it off. I did watch the whole thing. I was
No,
like,
well,
nope,
I
got
you've
enough.
done enough.
I did enough.
Oh,
So
goodness.
I just want to thank you for joining us.
Yes.
No, thank you guys. This was so great. Fun.
We love
Yeah.
it.
And we're glad to be back, and we're going to be weekly. And who knows if we're going to have surprise guests or make Amy do this with us every week.
You'll just have to wait and find out.
So much fun, but
Yes.
it cuts into my reading time, so I'm not sure if I can make it every week.
Yes, understandable.
We wouldn't want to do that. So, all right. Well, we're going to sign off, and we'll talk to you next week.
Until next week. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.